Let's go. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday. It is the 7th of November. It's a rainy day in Joburg. I love a rainy day.
Pretty much.
Although it looks like it's stopped now. I was hoping there'd be more, but all right. You said there's like a thunderstorm on the horizon.
Yeah, there is. Like, guys, I'm not the weather guy. Like, you guys
No,
keep
but
making me the weather guy.
But you are the end is nigh guy.
Yes,
so
thank you.
when I refer to a thunderstorm, I mean like there's something terrible coming, and that will make you happy because that's your prediction, right?
Right.
Right. Bakabantu is full of the joys of spring. Yeah, literally and figuratively. All right, here we are. We're live. We're ready to take care of you for the next 2 hours. Going to be joined by a friend of the show and somebody who's been with cliffcentral.com pretty much from the get-go, and that is Jack Motlanthe, who always adds a lot of value. We have lots of fun with him. He's going to be popping by. We got JJ Cornish with Africanalysis this morning too, and we'll be talking to author and journalist Michael Vlismas about Elon Musk. He wrote a book about him called Risking It All, and apparently Elon has read that book. But Michael Vlismas has written a number of books. He's written biographies of Gary Player, Skalkberger Jr., Tim Noakes, among others. And one of his books about Elon is, I think, worth looking at because there's a new biography on the scene by Walter Isaacson, which I've read part of. I would be lying to you if I said I'd read the whole thing, because there's a lot about kind of how he started PayPal and how he started getting involved with Tesla and SpaceX and his ideas of like migrating humans to other planets. And the problem with books now is that a lot of the stuff that you write is being superseded by a YouTube clip or an interview that he does online or a speech he makes somewhere. So your book is being updated by media that is not your book.
Yep.
And therefore, you kind of, as you get towards the end of the book, you start to fall into the internet rather, and so the book becomes less valuable. But where it is handy is especially in the very early chapters where you figure out how he started off.
Yeah, how he started, that undocumented stuff that you could only get if you researched the guy or you spoke to him directly.
Right.
But he was going to tweet something and he's going to say, nah, actually.
Well, are Michael and John related? Yes, I think they are brothers, actually, Bastsana. Nice to see you in the comments section again, Bastsana. I wonder where you've been for the last while. Did the other horrible people in the comment section scare you away for a little bit, or were you just busy with other stuff? You're allowed to tell us. Okay, so as Arbot says, remember to smash the like button as you come in. It's really important that you do this. I know it's irritating for some people to be asked to do this, but if you're watching us, that is all we ask you to do. I've never asked you to subscribe and pay money. I've never asked you to I don't know, make sure that we were compulsory in every household or go around from door to door doing marketing for us. But this is the one thing we need you to do. So I think it's a very fair thing for us to ask you to smash that like button, as Arbot says in the comments. Okay, so let's get into a couple of things this morning. I saw Julius Malema yesterday saying, and I hate making this guy the topic of conversation. Yeah, I just, he's actually just a petulant child. And I mean this with the respect that I did believe he was due before. I've always treated him as an equal. I've always said that Julius should be allowed to join in our conversation whenever he wanted to. I've interviewed him probably 4 or 5 times by now. And he and I had a fun to and fro for a while on WhatsApp, and then that kind of dried up. I suppose he became a lot more serious, because I've definitely not become more serious. And maybe he's taking himself very seriously. But yesterday, this thing brewed up, which is just so bizarre. It's the weirdest thing. Like, he's suddenly claiming that rugby was not invented by white people. It's just this weird, like, parallel view of history. Like, you get
we crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, you get the distinct impression that, like, propaganda from the KGB becomes the real history, and history just dissolves into nothingness. Now, the problem with that view is that if you think history is meaningless, then you can insert whatever crap you want to into history.
Yep.
And he fails to understand that even the Webb Ellis Trophy is named for the guy who invented rugby at rugby school in England. But for Julius, this is all completely inconsequential because he's got his own parallel view of history, which is totally made up on the spot.
Yeah.
And it involves this fantasy. I think he thinks Wakanda's real or something. But he's got this idea that that's how history really unfolded and that he is the heir to all of that.
Yes.
You know, grandiosity, if he thinks it's grandiosity. I mean, lots of people would be slightly embarrassed that rugby was invented at smart English public schools because it's quite a violent sport. But anyway, he goes on this raving rant on Twitter, and he says, "No, this sport we must change everything because actually
no. Okay, so it was the rebranding.
Yeah.
So now Amapogopogo is also like not a like
Can't
because
call
the
it
Boka
that.
you can't call it that because it comes from the Boka and that was
Well, it's because
PW Boka.
principally he's got a problem with Afrikaans as well because he did so badly at it at school. If he'd done very well at Afrikaans, we'd be having a very different conversation. It's all about Julius, people. If he was good at woodwork, everyone would be forced to do carpentry.
Exactly.
But we know he was shit at that too. So all right, yeah.
So it's the entire rebranding. We're gonna call it a new thing.
Yeah.
We know the real history of South Africa. As Jack just walked in wearing the face of racism.
Oh my God. Look at you, Jack Motlanthe. What are you doing?
The symbols of racism.
How dare you?
Listen, I say it was my chest.
Look at you with your Springbok. Let's just zoom in and
Which camera am I looking
Jack
at?
Motlanthe. You're looking right there.
Oh, okay,
That's
cool.
Perfect. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good to have you back in studio. Been a while.
It's been a minute. It has been a while. Hey.
Let's just let Bakabantu finish his rant for
Yes,
the morning.
go,
He's got
go.
stuff to tell us.
So I am triggered, Jack. That you dare come in wearing the Amaboko Boko shirt.
Man.
PW Bota's brainchild.
Hmm.
And you do realize that's like rugby was not created by white people, right?
Who created rugby?
I don't know. It was
Julius Malema did. He invented it himself now in this lifetime.
Really?
It's like between
That's what
woodwork
he
class
says.
and Afrikaans class. He really
No
thrived
ways.
at rugby.
Yeah.
Like I imagine.
Okay, so here's how it works. Let me explain how this works because this is like how fantasy as opposed to reality happens.
Yeah.
Anything that I'm good at, anything that is overwhelmingly good that people like, I'm going to claim. Everything that's shitty, that's bad, that's horrible, that results in unequal outcomes.
You've got nothing to do with
I got
it.
nothing to do with it. That's called Julius logic.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
So that's all you need to know.
Okay. By using his way of thinking, I'm 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
You're
His metrics.
You're
I
the
am
tallest man in the room.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
You know, the big show ain't got shit on me. I'm a really tall person.
I see
All right.
it. Now that you mention it, I see it, Jack.
So what else does he say? What else does he say, Bakabantu? Come on, help us with this.
So like it's just this rabbit hole of even the green and gold, guys. You guys need
We
to
got to
realize-
change that
we
as
need
well.
to change that, right?
To what? To red.
Probably. Like he didn't come out and say it, but probably it's gonna be red. It's probably gonna be EFF colors.
Mhm.
It should be really epic, right?
So
all reds.
I'm okay. So part of me just does not want to give this guy any more attention than he's getting because I don't think there's anything good we can learn from it.
Yeah. My question is, what is he doing? To what end? Like,
Well,
what's
It's
the
an election
end goal?
year next year, and he's just trying to get. You see, the angrier he is, the happier his supporters get.
yes.
It's like when Daddy gets home and he screams and shouts and bangs things together and like complains.
Right.
That's all it is. That's what a lot of his supporters are used to is not having Daddy come home at all. So Julius is like a substitute angry dad, and they'd rather have an angry dad
than no
than
dad.
no dad. Which
So it's
is
a
exactly
performance art. That's what it
It's
is.
exactly what it is, and
So
he's very good at it. You got to give him credit.
in my mind, on the same level, you've got Bushiri
Mm,
and Julius Malema. It's all acting.
that's exactly
You know.
right. In fact, it's a good comparison.
But I think Julius Blackborden, he's drinking his own Kool-Aid. I think he genuinely believes this stuff. Because at a certain point.
Okay, he responded to this woman on Twitter. I don't know if this is where you were going with this, but I
Yeah.
thought this is a great illustration. So if you, again, Ryan had to show me this morning because I don't know these things.
Mm.
But some woman, he went off at Musi Maimane, who also has problems for various reasons. But let's just put those aside because at least Musi Maimane is not constantly attention seeking. And at least when he replies and responds to some things, he's a little more thoughtful than Julius is. Anyway, Musi says something like, just, like calm down, dude. And this is what the Springboks mean, blah, blah, blah. Because I don't know why this has to be a debate. The Springboks mean whatever they mean to you. I didn't ask Jack when he came in here like, what how do you respond to the Springboks that you should feel entitled to wear that shirt? You wear it because you want to wear it.
Because, and on top of that, I know the difference between a forward pass and a knock on. So,
well, you know more than us. You know more than us. But here's the thing. So he responds to Musi Maimane saying, oh, please, why don't you come back to us when you've actually run something? You have no experience, which is ironic because actually while Musi was in charge of the DA, they were running municipalities, which the EFF has never done.
Yep.
EFF's never run not a single municipality have they been in charge of and governed in South Africa. So it's interesting he should be saying that. It's almost like a little bit of what they call projection in psychology. Then some ordinary member of the public responds and goes, yeah, sure, says someone from the 10% party, which is right. He's got 10%. He replies, fuck you, or whatever.
Do you think I give a fuck?
Yeah, you think I give a fuck. Right. So this is what we're dealing with. Someone who's stuck in adolescent. This is all it is.
A tantrum.
Yes, it is.
He
just turned 15.
But it's a tantrum. So Jack, how old are you, Buckabunt?
27.
I'm 34.
Okay, so between us, 40s, 30s, 20s, we can all tell that this is a childish way to respond.
Yes.
Julius is sort of in the middle of all of us. No way he has no gauge on his own emotions.
And on such a public platform.
On such a public platform, the leader of an opposition party, someone who wants to be taken seriously, this is how he responds. He just needs, you know what he needs? Dr. Hanan. He needs to sit down with a psychologist 3 times a week until he gets like his emotional state under control. That's all.
But you know what? On some level, it kind of feels like he's either a genius or he's really that dumb. Because I mean, he knows that would spark up some sort of.
You can be both, Ham. You can
be 2 things at once.
You can be a very specialist genius in a certain field. Like he's very good at getting a crowd going, talking straight to people's hearts. You know what a lot of politicians are good at, rhetoric.
Yes, they are
very good at that. I don't think that there's any doubt that he's clever about that stuff, and I don't doubt that he has an ability to see the sensitive areas, like to be able to tell where the nerves are on an issue. He's very good at that, which, I mean, you can't take that away from him. Even if you call him an idiot, you have to acknowledge that those things he's not an idiot about. But then generally, like his ability to cope with the world, not good.
Do you think he just sees red?
I think and you know how some of us, like, I'll admit, I get like that. I used to, certainly, with road rage, right? So we all get like that sometimes. I can see it now, and I've largely brought it under control, but I don't think he's got any handle on it at all. Like, he doesn't see how it's bad.
But not to deteriorate this into
it's like Donald
talk,
Trump,
right?
same thing,
exactly,
same thing. All he can do is be focused on me the whole time. That's all Donald Trump can do, and Julius is similar in that respect.
But I have a Donald Trump comment for you, and I just saw. But like, Jack, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer if he was that really smart, so he knows what he's doing, he knows he's inciting violence, he knows he's like creating strife in the country, or do you believe him to be dumb enough to like walk around like?
The former is great because at least there's some thought behind it. The latter is scary because, all bets are off. God only knows what's going to happen at the end. Like,
it's like have you ever watched those videos of like Hitler ranting and raving?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
And you're like, dude, calm
the fuck down. And what's interesting,
apparently they were giving him cocaine.
Yeah, on cocaine and steroids.
Okay, so that's the history channel.
History.
It's probably part of it, but he was already an angry guy, a lot like Julius. When he was in his 20s and 30s, he was pissed off because no one is buying his shitty paintings in Austria.
Right. And it wasn't because he was a bad painter.
He wasn't that bad, but
everyone else is just not seeing it the right way.
Exactly. He thought he was better than he was, which is my whole point about Julius. Is like he thinks he invented rugby. He thinks he's the greatest politician to ever come along. He's pure leadership. In his mind, he's just like liquid leadership. And he's leadership. So pissed off with all of us who don't see it.
We don't get it. Right. We don't get it.
And he keeps telling you, Jack.
Yeah.
He keeps telling you.
He keeps pointing it out to you all the time. Like, what's wrong with you? And the same goes for all of these egomaniacs who end up. Look, if you could find a single disqualifying characteristic for politics, it would be the desire to be in politics.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that always the people you least should have in politics are the ones who desperately want to be in politics.
Right.
It's almost like you go for a psychometric test. They sit you down, and if they see the narcissism is way up there, they're like, I'm so sorry, Mr. Malema. We're not going to be able to give you any entry into politics anywhere because you're just going to ruin things. And maybe, I mean, there's also an argument that narcissists get shit done, that they're in charge of most corporations, that most of them are the driving force behind a lot of this.
Like
But
we've had this conversation.
I
Like
feel in
45
politics-
people have become US president. That takes a special kind of breed, right?
It does take a unique kind of individual. And, you know, for the most part, most people just don't want to put themselves out there, even though they might have all the right ideas and the mental fortitude to actually put those things into action. However, they realized just how massive of a task it is to try, you know, go toe to toe with the likes of
But
Julius.
you need to not see it, like Gareth is saying. You need to not see it. You need to think the people don't see it, but you see it. You see the utopia that you want to build.
Well, that's it.
The perfect rugby utopia.
Man, can he just leave rugby alone? Honestly speaking,
Yeah, this
like,
is not a thing he needs to wait.
yeah, like just
no one's sitting on the sidelines going, you know what we need here is more commentary from that political.
yeah, no. And historically speaking, we've seen how the quota system in sports has kind of, you know, messed things up from time to time.
Except where it's been from school level, been looked after, coordinated. In the Eastern Cape, they've done a very good job of not just making it a quota system. It was very much like we're going to teach young boys at young ages that this is a sport that's available to
But
them.
he also went off at that because
you disagree?
No, I mean, that's literally how you get things done.
It
For
takes a
argument's
long
sake,
time.
exactly.
No.
Lionel Messi left Argentina as a teenager. He was what, 13, 14 years old when he went to Barcelona?
They shipped him away like a slave. That's
like,
what they did.
Yes,
Seriously.
fit to work.
Yeah.
And now look, he's won 8 Ballon d'Ors.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's cause and effect. If you
18
ever
years
need,
a slave.
yeah, you know,
But they did the same. I mean, that Beckham documentary that everyone's talking about.
yeah.
If you look at how David Beckham actually got into football and how his father pushed him. I mean, at what, like age 10, 11, 12.
Yep.
let's not even go far.
The guy was
Siya
just playing.
Kolisi was given a bursary to go to Great PE.
There you go.
And he had
Tiger
to just
Woods.
play.
Look,
play.
The list is endless. Okay, it's really simple. The moment you're born with a certain talent,
Yeah. And I identified early enough.
we just nurture that and we keep
Or-
building on it. That's
or
it.
your parents are just so interested in making money off your talent, a la Tiger Woods, Serena and Venus Williams' father. You know,
Hey.
these are people who
Gareth?
no, and Andre Agassi's father. These people
Joel
have
Jackson, Michael Jackson's father.
I love the Michael Jackson, Joe Jackson compare because what if his kids would have probably ended up Jehovah's Witness preachers, right? If he hadn't said to them, "You're going to dance every day, you're going to sing every day, you're going to do this until you're exhausted."
Thank you.
I don't care how long it
chemically
takes.
And I would much rather have,
Not the girls, and they ended up all right.
you know, I would much rather have Michael Jackson moonwalking rather than knocking on my door. Have you accepted Jesus in your life? I don't need that.
Plus, do you have any children in the house?
I do not need
The Lord
that.
said, "Bring your children."
Only
to
the
me."
boys. It
Okay,
was
you
never
see?
the girls.
That's,
Anyway.
that's where we crossed the line. That now I'm triggered. With Michael Jackson, you cannot say
Really?
anything wrong about that man. I'm sorry.
What?
No, okay. Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Hold on. We're jumping around a bit.
Yes,
This
yes,
deserves
sorry.
some attention, though.
Okay, cool.
Michael Jackson was a tremendously talented artist, one of the best musical artists that ever lived. He will not be surpassed for another generation or two. And then whoever comes along, whoever comes along won't be able to
Like the boys'
necessarily.
butt.
They might not be able to dance like he did, or they might not be able to sing like he did, but it might have half the talent he did, and they'll still be impressive. I mean, God knows, some people are still trying to pretend that they're Michael Jackson, like poor Bruno Mars. He really,
Yeah,
that
he's
guy's
trying, right?
That guy's
Yeah.
trying his fucking best, but no one buying it.
Like he even did the cocaine.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
Look,
not
man.
working.
But so let's be honest, he is doing a good job. I think he's
Who,
not
Bruno Mars.
Yeah, he's not the worst on
But
the
back
planet.
to, back to Michael Jackson.
Yes.
So Michael was raised by the psychopath of a father. He was.
Yeah,
Joseph was a complete raving lunatic.
Yeah,
like
he's crazy.
a la Hitler.
Yeah.
He was like, boy, I want you to do some more dancing.
Yeah.
Michael, come here and give you a hiding because you didn't dance so well.
Yep.
Your move in the fourth bar of that song wasn't exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he was so unbelievable, because he was shit scared.
Right.
Okay, but as a result of all that anguish, you ended up with a person who was not totally emotionally balanced. Back to Julius.
Without a doubt.
Michael Jackson grew up with a lot of resentment, didn't have a childhood, he's constantly surrounding himself with soft toys, playgrounds. His friends were all emotionally and mentally at the age of 12. And that's because he was stunted. And again, psychologists will have a field day with this. I'm not a psychologist, but it's clear to anyone that was the root of his problem.
For sure.
And I don't begrudge him that none of this was his fault. So I don't blame him for that. What I do blame him for is you don't let other people's children sleep in your bed when you're a grown-ass man. And he did that. And he did that. So even if nothing happened,
it is weird.
It's just not weird.
It's like
it's not allowed. I'm sorry.
It isn't. And here's my thing.
You can't have people sleeping in your bed who are not your children and who are underage. You just can't do it.
Yes.
Sorry. Let's have a line somewhere in the sand. That's my line.
And I completely agree with you. All I'm saying is,
how does that change that you're a fan? You could still be a fan and acknowledge that.
I definitely acknowledge that. I feel like I'm a Michael Jackson historian. Like I've seen almost everything that's been put out about the man. But I think it's nothing really happens in a vacuum in this life. So we also need to look at the parents. Like, why would you leave your kids? I'm also adding that in there. And I'm also keeping in mind that Michael Jackson was unique in the sense that he was.
I know what you're
going to say. He's the only one who was that famous and that rich.
I know what you're going to say.
How are you going to be normal?
I know where you're going.
Being that famous?
You're like,
and that rich?
If you had a kid that Michael took a fancy to.
Hell no.
And it got us an extra couple of Billie Jeans.
You might have thought about. No? Oh, hell no.
Okay, all right.
Hell no.
Have you seen that documentary, though, as a Michael Jackson historian?
Which one?
Leaving Neverland or something like that.
Oh, that rubbish. But anyway, yes.
It's not.
No, it was rubbish. No, it was rubbish.
So Gareth, you need to understand this. This woman broke up her marriage to move his son closer to Michael, right? And then Michael used to book an entire floor,
and she's like, no, she's perfectly sane, according to you.
She's not the problem, Michael.
She's not the problem. You just said this woman broke up her marriage to get her child
closer to Michael.
But Michael is the insane one. She's not insane at all.
So she used to sleep a floor below, and she thought it was weird when those security guards protecting the floor with the son. And Michael never wanted to sleep with the daughter, just the son.
Never the girl children.
Look, man,
take a girl child to work. It's not gonna happen.
Mind you, I'm not saying what the man did was not questionable or.
Jesus, that's being super
generous.
I'm not at all trying to defend Michael Jackson here. There's a lot of shit that he did that just doesn't make sense to the rest of us.
Elon Chief Twat in the comments says there's no free trip to Neverland.
We all pay.
Someone has to teach these kids.
Look,
but I'm just saying, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that we can look at and be on some. No, that was absolutely deplorable. You can't do that.
So we're agreeing there.
Yeah.
So
yes,
we're on the same side. So I'm also a big Michael Jackson fan, but I acknowledge that. See, where I think you and I have got agreement and where other people haven't yet got to is that to them you have to be a completely good person and everything about you needs to be superhuman, or you're just absolute shit.
Yeah.
Now that's not possible. I think what it is that some people are extremely good in some areas. Again, Julius, right? He's good at the rhetoric. He's good at the politics. He's good at whipping up a crowd. And there's a use for that. Like if you're a charismatic preacher or something.
Yes.
That's great stuff. You hope and salvation.
Hallelujah.
And power of Jesus and
yes,
power of prayer.
Amen.
You can change your life today. All that sort of shit. But if it's directed in the wrong places, it can be very pathological. Similarly, you can have a talent like Michael undisputedly had an insane level of talent and ability. And his work ethic was unchallengeable.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also a bit weird in the head
Of
because
course.
of the way he was raised, and he may have had very unhealthy. In fact, he definitely had unhealthy relationships, not only romantic but perhaps sexual. And we're just going to leave it at that because this is now obvious, and the man's dead.
Yep.
And I don't mean to keep on waking his ghost up. Hello, how are you? I don't mean to keep giving him a reason to come back and talk to us.
Yeah.
But you're never going to find the perfect person. It's like these people who tear down statues because they think, oh, well, Winston Churchill once said something racist. Like in the late 1800s, everyone was racist.
Like literally everyone.
So if you're going to go into the 1800s, I mean, I love the way all these people who are so pure and socially just these days, you know, they're all going on Twitter explaining how wonderfully open-minded and equity-based their thinking is. But if you'd put them back in the 1800s,
they would not do a single
thing.
They
wouldn't have achieved anything. Anyway, we must stop this idea of trying to find perfect role models.
They don't exist.
They don't exist.
Thank you.
They don't exist.
Right.
We need to, I feel like we need to look at the, I don't know how to put this. Like we need to look at the fact that these people did not get off the fucking saddle. Like more especially in today's times. Like I've heard a couple of people complaining, yeah, I've been working at this job for 6 months. I don't feel like I've made an impact. It's like, yeah, it's been 6 months.
6 months.
Okay.
It's like we go back to the rugby, and here's a point that is being made by someone else here that I think is a very good one. Yonda Ndigi says, rugby in the Eastern Cape has nothing to do with the government. The sport was played since the 40s. During apartheid, it was played. The only sport celebrated in the early 90s was rugby and its culture. So I think
and why does that offend someone?
That's like, a valid point. You know why? Because again, if we go back to the reason we started this conversation with our friend Juju, who's the third most popular politician in the country, only the third, after Cyril, who none of us can believe is popular at all. Anyway,
he's just known. He's not popular.
He wants people to see only the good, never the bad. And he thinks he's all good. So he thinks anytime he opens his mouth, people just go, oh, and there are idiots who will be, oh, that's amazing. Everything he says is so great. Again, they're hero worshipping rather than role modeling.
Yeah.
Hero worshipping is a very bad thing.
Yes, it is.
Because humans will always let you down.
Yeah.
But role modeling is fine. And you can role model Lionel Messi when it comes to football skills. You can role model Sia Kolisi when it comes to rugby skills. You can role model
Michael Jackson when it comes to work ethic
and to music ability. You can role model Julius in oratory if that's your thing.
For sure.
But to imagine that any one of those people is perfect. I mean, just off the top of my head, Julius, we've discussed his problems. Lionel Messi, major tax evasion issues.
Yep,
but that was his dad. That was his dad.
Whatever.
No, let's not blame Lionel Messi.
He's not perfect. He's not perfect.
He's not.
There'll be something somewhere that creeps out one day from someone, some jilted ex-lover, one of his children. One day will write some horrible biography about how my dad just paid no attention to us because he's kicking the ball the whole time. Something will come out and he'll be imperfect at some point.
Yep.
And even in Sia's life, he's very open about his own failings, right? And that's probably a good thing because then people go, so it's okay for us to role model you, but we don't need to hero worship.
Yep.
And there we start the show. So it took us 30 minutes to get here. We got here eventually. How are you, Jack? What's happening, man?
I'm fantastic, big guy. How are you?
Excellent. Jack Motlanthe, of course, used to have his own show here on cliffcentral.com.
Once upon a time.
Yes. And I think it's probably time that we do something there again. But he's been busy. What have you been busy with?
As usual, in the studio making music. That'll forever be a first love for me. I recently joined a community radio station not too far from here, actually.
What do they do? What are they called?
919. So I host.
Sounds almost like 911.
Yeah.
Do people sometimes call you while you're doing a show and they go, "I've got an emergency"?
you have Jack on 911.
I wish some of my listeners were as creative as you, but they haven't done that yet. I actually wish I had thought of that myself, but nonetheless.
In the old days, I would have phoned that number 100 times a day. Going, "Hi, I've got an emergency." So you eventually shut down the line. That's what I would do.
Or change the radio station.
Yeah, well, it was Star FM.
Okay.
And then it got rebranded to 919. So I host a weekend show called Soundscape, and That's one of my main focuses at this point. The last time you and I had a chat,
And hang on, this is radio, so you play
Radio,
play
radio.
music,
play
and-
music
okay,
and
it's old school stuff.
old school stuff. It's fun because I love music, so I get to fool around with that, which is pretty cool. The last time I joined you here, I mentioned to you that we were busy with Desert Green, that
Yes.
marketplace for small scale farmers and
That's
people that
very
want to
good.
get
Is
veggies.
it still going?
It hit a bit of a snag. We hit a bit of a snafu, but we don't give up. So we're trying to put
It was a
things
good
together.
idea. I mean,
Yeah.
if we could turn more parts of South Africa into arable,
Mm.
useful land, a la the way that Israel does.
Mm.
They've turned a desert into a flowering oasis over there, and it's possible.
It is extremely possible.
I think we
So-
used to believe that certain parts of the world were just not arable. There's just nothing you could do with it. But it turns out that that's not true.
Not at all. In fact,
Enough water and enough effort and some added nitrogen and phosphate components, and suddenly
Mhm.
you've got a garden.
exactly. And it's more often than not, people don't realize just how much they have at their disposal until someone shows up and be like, yo, this is what you could possibly do with this. And
But isn't it true that we don't know what we've got till it's gone? Is like that's the anthem of humanity.
Mm,
And you look at all these young people in South Africa, right? And this is something that is going to become increasingly a clarion call for me over the next couple of months. And I know you care about this too, Bakabantu, but here are young people whose parents and grandparents fought for the vote.
mm,
So you have the vote,
mhm,
but you're not even using it.
mm,
If I say to you, I'm going to take it away from you, you watch how quickly people get
Yeah.
upset about it.
for sure.
But in the meantime, they're just sitting on their hands. You've got this ability to change your own future for the better.
Right.
But instead, nah, don't need to do that. I don't want to go to the polls. I'll just lie here and scroll through social media on voting day.
I'm gonna tweet about
Someone
voting day.
explain that to me.
I don't
because
know.
if I threaten to go around house to house and remove and revoke your right to vote, your people get upset.
Yeah. I
They
think
get upset about something they're not even using.
sometimes I wonder though. I was having this conversation with a couple of my friends on Saturday. Like, are we soft parents or are the kids just soft? Like, I'm not sure if our parents did a good enough job to instill the importance of voting on that generation,
Well,
or
you would
is
think, I mean, if you go on Twitter or you listen to our politicians, you would think that 94 was the most important thing that ever happened in South Africa. And in some ways it was.
it? Mhm.
But that's not what they're teaching them at school. And
No.
if you ask people about it, they know nothing. They have no idea. Like most people in this country, and I'm talking about black, white, I'm talking about rich, poor,
Mm.
they have no idea. They don't read history at all. They couldn't care less. They go, oh, well, that's a thing that I can project my own shit onto.
Yeah.
I don't actually know the story of Codesa. I don't actually know the story of how the first elections came about, of the unbanning of the ANC. I mean, maybe in some very politically astute families, this is stuff that gets carried down like ancestral stories, right?
Mm.
You know how people talk about the Amantlozi and the
Yeah.
stories of the ancestors.
Right.
And a lot of people talk like that, but they actually don't know the first thing
I was
about it.
gonna
It's
say
just something
there's-
they claim.
There's a great middle between what you and Gareth are making. It is the youth that is soft, but the parents also like. I think it started out from a point of we wanted to protect our kids from the terribleness that it was apartheid, because lest we forget, it was terrible. So a lot of
Yes,
people are
it was.
traumatized. So you don't want your kids ever to see that imagery, right? So you bury it. But now the problem with burying history, you're doomed to repeat it.
You are. And look, I think for whatever reason, as you're saying, it's slap bang in the middle, because in my honest opinion, next year's elections are more important
Mhm.
than 1994,
Yes.
because I feel like this is a watershed moment for this country.
I agree.
Typically, revolutionary or freedom
Revolutionary
fighters or
governments.
whatever,
Mm.
they've got a shelf life of about 30 years.
Mhm.
And if the country doesn't correct itself at that point, everything goes to hell.
Yeah.
So I don't know. In the next couple of months, we need to somehow instill it into the young people of this country that, look, you have to vote. You have to do it.
Well, it's also this idea. I think you made a very valid point there, Bakabantu, that I hadn't thought about. That a lot of people are trying also to just have a fresh start for their kids, where they don't have to be attached to the past.
Yeah.
But you have to have context for everything,
Right?
You can't just pretend there wasn't a story that came before.
Mhm.
For me, that just look. I can understand trying to shield your kids from certain things, but you're not doing them any favors.
You're not.
Dr. Jordan Peterson says this all the time. Like, you're not going to make the world a better place by trying to make it softer. You're going to have to make your kids more resilient and braver.
And
But
how do
Ju-
you make people resilient? You make them face their fears.
Voluntarily.
But now, Jack, we live in a country and in a world where your feelings matter, and we have to care about what you're
Ugh.
feeling, and we need to
Oh.
cuddle you. And
Oh,
we need,
feelings.
you can tweet about, I'm so triggered by the Boca winning. No, you're not.
Let me ask you this. When was the last time your feelings filled your stomach? Genuinely.
But we have 350 for that, so that's not a problem in this country.
Oh my God. Man, you know what? All of our feelings can jump off a cliff. Honestly. I do not care at all about people's feelings. Because
not at all.
Not at all.
I mean, if you
Not at all.
you
Gareth,
got
let me ask.
a wife or a girlrmorphone or a mom or a sister, and she's crying. You
Jack does not care about
you. Don't care at all.
I don't care. I don't care. Let me tell you why. At the end of the day, we are all born into miserable lives, and we just need to find a way to cope. And we find those coping mechanisms in the things that we are willing to invest our time and energy into. If you are sitting there trying to figure out how you feel, you're going to sit there the whole day.
Who you can blame for it.
Exactly. You're going to be in your bed the entire day or on the couch trying to figure out who did you wrong. Meanwhile, all of us are here.
Grievance politics.
Come on. Get over it.
Yeah.
Get over it. How about here's an idea.
Okay, here's something from Tabo I want you guys to respond to, because it's all about what you've said now. Why do we insist on overhyping elections in this country, especially next year's elections? We all know how the masses in this country think. Why the hell will these elections be any different, says Tabo?
They have to be different, Tibos. And I don't think we're overhyping them. I think you are downplaying just how important this is. Here's what I'm saying. When you look at some of the international, I guess, would it be a treaty or agreements that we're part of, like AGOA and all of those things? Like, there's a lot of things that need to be put into place. We are living in a very globalized world.
Yeah.
And if we do not position ourselves in the best place moving forward, we could fall 30 or 40 years behind the rest of the world. And I don't want to live in a country like that. I love South Africa. I'm not planning to move at all. And instead of running like a coward, I would much rather stick around and try fix what we have broken. And I'm saying we as a collective.
All of us.
Spot on, Jack. The future that you want to live in, you vote for next year. That's why it's important, Tabo. If you want to live here in this country, if you want to live in this world, if you want South Africa to be a major player, if you want a job, if you want a great economy, if you want great healthcare, you want all these things.
Keep going.
On that vote.
And
that's why that vote is important.
Something else that's important is the vote is your first step.
Yep.
It's not the only one. It's your first step. I find it so shocking that the vast majority of us don't even know who our ward councillor is.
True story.
And that's the person you need to go to first. Like, whenever I see, service delivery strikes and whatnot, and people are burning up their area, I get so frustrated because that area has got a ward councillor.
Yep.
That ward councillor has got a car, a phone, and they are there literally to serve you.
It's their whole job.
It's their entire job. And if all of us
to burn down the school,
can you imagine? So let's just say you were doing the strike to bring attention to the fact that the garbage hasn't been collected. So that means before we collect the garbage, we're gonna have to remove the rubble that was the former school. We'll waste 3 weeks on that while the garbage still piles up, and then after that, then we'll get rid of the garbage. Yeah. It's like, it's so regressive. And it's frustrating because, right now we are communicating through technology. There are cameras in here. There's all of this great stuff. We've literally got the world on our phones. but no one's Googling things that are important. No one cares.
No, they're busy arguing with each other on Twitter.
Do you know what they're busy doing, Gareth? They're
What?
busy talking about their feelings.
Back around.
They're talking about their feelings.
All right. Okay. Let's just, while we, because I've got a couple of minutes before we get to JJ Cornish, and you spoke about, things like AGOA, which we'll talk to him about in just a moment.
Yeah.
Africanalysis is one of our favorite things to do on a Tuesday. We get to check in with JJ about all the big stories that are going on the African continent, our wider environment, which we need to pay attention to. So we get to that just now, but just before we go to it, I do think, and you wanted to talk about the importance of these elections. For people who are not registered, I think you've got a very limited amount of time now to do that.
Mm.
I think that registration is open now, or it will be very soon. They're probably going to call the election sometime in May next year. That's what I assume. Who knows? But be ready for that. And
Be ready.
When people start talking about registration, if you are a young South African who gives a damn about the next 10 years of your life, and you don't take part in this, then it's on you. Hey? Yeah. That's all. So I don't care if you vote or not, but understand that the consequences are it's on you if you don't do that. And then
For the record, I care.
I can tell you care. I can tell you care. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see if we can get more people interested. And also, don't just register and then vote for whatever you feel like on the day. Like, do a bit of research, right? Don't be an idiot.
Those damn feelings. It's those damn feelings. I'm telling you.
Because on the day, the Patriotic Alliance gives you half a chicken.
Oh,
I got 2 SMSs yesterday. One from the IEC telling me to register. I'm like,
really?
I'm already registered. And number 2, I got one from this new party that's launching or something like that. I think it's the Cape Town. Oh yeah, it's the Cape Town people that want to independence for Cape Town.
Oh really?
Yes.
That's them.
And
they got your number.
Yes. Apparently, I am so invested in the independence of Cape Town
that they had to call you up.
They had to call you up like, dude, we need you to needle us.
Yeah.
Wow.
You might just turn into a lobbyist. Who knows?
And just remember, it doesn't take a majority of people to make a change.
Yeah.
Huh?
It doesn't.
It really
Back
doesn't.
to Julius. Fun fact.
Okay.
Fun fact. Guy does not own any municipality. I think the number is roughly
They don't
10 to
govern
20.
any.
Yeah, they haven't governed any.
Every municipality that they contested, roughly 10 to 20%.
Mhm.
But the guy is the 3rd most popular politician in the country. So it really doesn't take a large number to move the needle.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't. And I also don't understand why we have so many political parties. I don't get it. Because honestly, if you were to read their manifestos and what they claim they want to do and whatnot, 90% of them are saying the same thing.
Or they're saying nothing at all.
At all. It's like, what are we doing here?
Slippery Pickle says, if voting changed governments, they wouldn't let you do it in the first place.
Oh, wow. That is deep. That's bars right there.
Yeah. You could say that, but the evidence is that if you want to change laws and you want to change the trajectory of the economy and that sort of thing, you actually do need to have
you do
people
You do.
representing you in parliament. That's a very important thing.
It's insane to me that in 2023 you have to tell adults to behave like adults.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think at any point in time in human history has there ever been a civilization where the bare minimums need to be explained. Like,
No,
wake up.
I think it's always been like that. But I think these days you have less excuse if you just allow yourself to be
Gareth, let me
bullshitted like
look.
that.
In the 1950s, right?
Mhm.
All of the racial nonsense aside,
Yeah.
how many men and women needed to be told that they need to go get a job or
No,
they
they,
need to?
they had to or they wouldn't make it.
Yes.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, at this point in time, we've got so much convenience around us. We just think things are so, like it just naturally manifest.
I know what you mean. I know what you're getting at here. It's just a lot of people will say, well, we've got the ability to now look at things and research things and find out things that we never could have before. And also people have got social safety nets in place, so they don't have to worry about a job as much, especially in the first world. And the government did hand out just tons of money to people during COVID.
Yep.
They just proved that, there is actually a way for you to just subsist on the government social grant. I mean, it's a horrible subsistence, but it's
terrible.
It's better than work for some people.
Can
Some
you
people are
imagine?
just lazy.
And
Yeah.
you know what? I take so much pride in the fact that I can get things done.
Well, I don't know if you're in the majority. We'll have to figure that out.
Yep.
We'll
I
have to
hope
see.
so.
But if you are getting things done, and this is always an interesting statistic to look at, we brought it up briefly the other day with Ivor Chipkin. I don't know what the exact number is now, but there are probably between 15 and 20 people in this country. If you are a person who earns anything, if you earn anything, between 15 and 20 people who are dependent on
Yes.
you, that you are not actually the father or the mother or the uncle or the brother of.
Yes.
That is crazy. I've never heard that statistic
never had that
before.
statistic?
No.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a real thing. And that's
In
as a
South,
result.
in South Africa, I say to my friends, there's a social contract that we all signed in 1994, which is I was born 1996, so I was not part of it, Gareth.
You take no ownership
I
of
take
this.
no ownership of this.
You
But
just
this-
you've been grandfathered in.
yeah,
you know-
right.
All right.
But like the
Gareth,
rich
you hear this
support the poor.
I know.
This baby.
You
Go
guys
on.
were there.
Go on. What did you want to say?
He's being baby daddies to all these kids.
The social contract.
The social contract is that the rich do take care of the poor, right? But now it's too much. It's
Not even the rich. We're talking about
But-
middle class people.
but we've wiped out the middle class.
who are barely earning enough to make ends meet.
exactly.
They've got more debt sometimes than they have money in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, most of the time, and they're financing people that they're not actually responsible for.
Yes. And people who don't care to actually take part in the system.
Right.
And that pie keeps growing lesser and lesser. I think at a certain point, there was 17 million people working in South Africa that support the rest of the country, which is like at 60 million. But now that number has grown and the other number has shrunk.
All right, let's just stop this conversation.
Yeah, because
right now.
I'm getting depressed right now. This is not cool.
Let's get into a little Africanalysis. It's, of course, brought to you by the Johannesburg Business School. And here is none other than JJ Cornish. Good morning, JJ. How are you?
Bonjour to you all. I'm immensely well. You know, Jack,
Good.
I was watching my good friend Donald Trump yesterday moving around uneasily on that hard wooden court chair, and a huge splinter lodged itself in his butt. And his
Oh, yes.
feelings were badly affected by this. He turned on the prosecutor, called her a hack. He sulked. And he said terrible things to every one of the members of the trial jury, or there's no jury, just the judge. He even took on the judge. Now, do you care or do you not care for his feelings? And would you help him get that splinter out?
Big guy, do you see what I'm doing right now? Do you see me?
The world's smallest violin.
Yeah. Right there. I'm playing that for Mr.
So,
Donald Trump.
I
right there.
guess that's a no then.
Yeah, no, hell no.
Sorry, JJ. No sympathy here.
None whatsoever.
I say thank goodness for the International Red Cross then. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Uganda, because they have banned the sale of second-hand clothing. Now, this is an interesting subcategory of the textile industry. Yoweri Museveni has railed against being kicked out of the US duty-free access program, which we know as AGOA. Uganda was not booted because of the used clothing. But explain this to us, because we've got AGOA in place for South Africa, don't we?
Well, indeed we do. You know, AGOA, look, it was so interesting, so considerate of Yoweri Museveni to get booted out of AGOA, because we kept that used clothing story. We didn't get round to it last time. And, you know, I was trying to find a fresh angle, and there it was. Essentially, he doesn't want Ugandans to get used clothing or to buy it, because it's cheaper to do, because he says it's from dead people, and he's banned it. Now, other countries, including Rwanda, have done this before, in each case trying to boost the local fabric industry, local clothing industry. But the populations have said, we're not paying the prices that you are asking. And they've had to bring back used clothing. I don't know if Yoweri Museveni will do that. I think he earns quite enough to buy brand new clothing. But so essentially, he's spiting his people with this a rather ridiculous thing. The most used clothing, by the way, Gareth, comes not from the United States, as one would have thought, but from China. Interesting. $4 billion.
Yeah. I mean, this is the problem, right? When you try to artificially lift or lower the market, you learn some hard lessons. And I think this is probably what's going to happen, because ordinary Ugandans will get the best clothing they can at the cheapest price. And if it comes from China, which it's likely to, or even India, then there's no way that Uganda can compete. We know, because our local textile industry in South Africa has been completely decimated by the very same. The ability for the Chinese and the Indians to hop in on this market, and the Vietnamese, it has to be said, hop in on this market and produce far more at far less. That's what's going to win. But what is the African Growth and Opportunities Act, and what is it meant to do, JJ?
The Y2K, Bill Clinton brought in AGOA, African Growth and Opportunities Act. Countries that met certain standards in the United States with the United States. In other words, good governance, good human rights records, and that didn't do anything injurious to the security of the United States, were given duty-free access to US markets. I think 18,000 goods. Now, South Africa was never really meant to be a beneficiary of AGOA, and is by a sea mile the greatest beneficiary. So politicians on both sides of the aisle say that South Africa really shouldn't be in AGOA. And I know Willilian Schlappo, the former ambassador to United States, he had, and his predecessor had been battling to keep South Africa there because, of course, it's enormously beneficial. You know, things from jeans to used clothing to roses, because I know Kenya, that's its biggest export. Motor cars, the Mercedes and BMWs that we assemble here go into the United States duty-free. And the reason why some people want to keep us out, because like any good political system, what matters in the United States is what matters to your constituents. So a politician's position on anything is going to be what matters most to his or her constituents. It's like diplomacy. There's no such thing as friends. There's only interests. And so when they say, oh, well, we're going to be kicked out of AGOA because of our position on, I don't know, on Israel or on Ukraine, it's not that at all. It's simply that we are doing too well out of it. Nevertheless, that AGOA has been renewed once, and it's due to be renewed again, or it fails or falls in 2025. And the push at the AGOA meeting last week was to get it renewed, to push the United States to renew it. So countries like Lesotho do terribly well out of it because of their fabrics. Countries that, and 4 countries were kicked off: Uganda, well, let me think, the countries that had coups, and other countries that, so it would have been Guinea, and it would have been Gabon and Niger, of course, all countries that were once great friends of the West. Mali and other countries were kicked off before that. Mauritania has been brought in.
I mean, it sounds to me almost like this is the tool that we will use to either punish you or to reward you.
The carrot or the stick.
Yeah, for being a proxy for us in Africa, signed the USA. Is that fair, or is that just an oversimplification?
I think that's fair enough. You know, a lot of people, a lot of my friends in the ANC refer to it as bullying, which, of course, the United States does enormously well. And telling countries how to behave. You behave this way, and we'll make it good for you. But
it's ironic that the ANC could do with a little more bullying, if you ask me.
Well, yeah. The thing is, though, a lot of countries, I think there are 37 countries that are now beneficiaries of AGOA, and they do very well out of it. So, yes, carrot and stick thing. And, you know, if they step wrong, the thing about it, South Africa hasn't really hesitated to stick its finger in the eye of the American bald eagle when it feels like it, and it's still in AGOA. So you know, it's a system that yes, can be said to be bullying, but it's working right now, and I hope it gets renewed because I think it's beneficial.
Let's quickly refer to what's going on in Sudan, and then I want to talk about migration, which is obviously still a big, if not the biggest issue between Africa and Europe. But let's talk about Sudan. They've the paramilitaries have seized control of a 3rd military base in the Darfur region. That poor region and those poor people who live there. They've now abducted women and girls and are holding them in slave-like conditions. How is this happening in 2023, JJ?
You know, how did it happen in the 80s when Darfur was the world's worst humanitarian crisis? It would be that again, except that, you know, it's been surpassed by places like Gaza and Ukraine, and but I mean it's there or thereabouts. And the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, have concentrated very heavily on Darfur. Darfur, of course, to the west of Sudan, and it's largely a Bantu population or black population. And, you have this dichotomy between the Arab and black populations of Sudan. And so then, of course, there's tribal reasons there, and the whole question of elders and so on that have always had it separated. It's felt marginalized, and that's why there was a strong independence movement. That's why the government cracked down on it, and that's why peacekeepers from around the world, including South Africa, were sent there. I've been to Darfur 3 times, and I mean, it was parlous at that time. It seemed to be improving, but now with this battle between the Rapid Support Forces and the military, it's back in, and it's people are suffering more there now, I'm told, by people I speak to there, than they did in the 80s. It's really, really awful. And
is there a religious element to the separation between the powerful and the less powerful there as well?
Indeed, yes. I think a lot of Darfur is not Muslim, and would have Christianity. So there is that racial and religious divide. And that is why it sets itself apart, and it always has, and it's always made demands of the Sudanese government, which they had refused to relent to, but then were forced by international pressure. But now, of course, nobody tells the RSF what to do. Equally, nobody dares tell the military what to do. And the two sides, and I've said this to you before, the reason why the peace talks, which of course have resumed in Jeddah, in the last couple of weeks. The reason why they have failed is that both sides believe in their hearts that they can win this battle. And while they do this, it doesn't matter what happens to the people of Sudan, they'll keep fighting.
It strikes me as absolutely amazing that in London over the last couple of days, we've had protests of millions of people for Gaza and the open air and inverted commas prison that Gaza is. And there is an actual open-air prison in Darfur, according to what you've just described to us. And there are clear indications that one side is trying to prevail over the other at all costs. There's also what's going on in China with the Uyghurs that nobody seems to be talking about. You can't get one person to protest in London for either of those causes, where there is far more in terms of just numbers suffering. And yet, it's just the world's focus is on this tiny strip of land between Egypt and Israel, isn't it? It's just amazing to me.
It's sheep mentality. It's whatever seems like the trend at that point in time is where everyone flocks. You remember the Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, exactly.
Situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I can't even watch a soccer match without politics being thrown in the middle of the game.
Because of one guy who overdosed. So
JJ, Gareth, I was invited to Israel, and they took great pride in the fact that their position is the focus of international attention, more international attention on what happens in Israel than anywhere else in the world. And it's funny. I mean, people, countries become addicted to it. I can remember South Africans, when international observers stopped attending our elections, grew very angry and said, why are they not interested in our elections anymore? And I said, no, it's not that they're not interested. It's they're not afraid that they're going to be jippoed. And that's why they're not sending huge teams of international observers. But it was odd to me that the Israelis should feel that way about it. But that is the reality. And of course, you're not right in saying nobody says anything about the Uyghurs. Nobody says anything about what's happening in Darfur. There are, of course,
they're not million-man protests. That's for sure.
No, certainly not that size. Certainly not that size. But the fact that the Middle East is the most popular issue at the moment is not surprising to me, because it has been over the years. Ever since the establishment of the State of Israel. So that doesn't surprise me.
Let me, in the very little time we have left, just quickly talk about the Canary Islands, because this is a place which becomes the focus of an ongoing immigration crisis in Europe and from Africa to Europe. I also saw a Gallup poll not so long ago that said that 1/3 of sub-Saharan Africans don't want to be in sub-Saharan Africa. In other words, they would leave if given half a chance. Now, that's sub-Saharan Africa. Obviously, there are areas north of that it's even worse to live in, like Libya or Algeria. So what's happening in the Canary Islands?
Or Eritrea, where they call you up until the age of, 80 or something. The thing about it is, you think that you look at a map and you think, well, it's a short hop across to the Canaries. It's not a short hop by any means. It's 1,600 kilometers, and it's in a sense upstream. It's sailing upwards. It takes 11 days. It takes all your life savings to pay the people trafficker for that. Now, the numbers that have gone, in 2000, and I do believe something like 2006, 31,000 people got to the Canaries. It's a stopping point. It belongs to Spain, and it's like Ceuta and Melilla, the two little enclaves in Morocco. Once you get there, you're actually in Spain, and you then have can try to get refugee status and move to other parts of Europe. That's what happens with the Canaries. This year, 32,000 people have gone to the Canaries, have disembarked there. And it's a real problem for them because they're small islands. They can't take that number of refugees or migrants, as they prefer to be called. And most of them have come from Senegal. Now, when you look at African countries with problems, Senegal doesn't number at the top anywhere near it. It's not, there's no human rights violations. There's no major conflict there. There's a separatist group in Casamance and so on. But it's odd that they should come from Senegal. That would support the argument of those who take a rather hard line saying, well, these are not people fleeing conflict and oppression, but these are economic migrants and people who want a better life, and certainly 1 in 3, 1/3. That doesn't surprise me, that figure. They come to South Africa. We take a huge number. A country like Uganda takes a disproportionate number of immigrants. More power to it for that, but they are people from conflict zones around it. But the others that are going to the Canaries are from Gambia. Again, a country in some sort of turmoil. Mauritania, a country that's just, as I mentioned earlier, been brought into AGOA, and Morocco, which of course is a frightening country. If you oppose the system in Morocco, your life is miserable.
JJ, I'm afraid that's all we got time for. I'd love to carry this on, and perhaps we can in 2 weeks' time. Africanalysis brought to you by the Johannesburg Business School. JJ Cornish, thank you very much.
Lovely being with you.
Good to see you. We are still with Jack Motlanthe, with Bagabantu, and you and I, and we will be back with even more in just a short bit. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Another thing is there's so many things that have impacted affordability. It's not just the price of the car, right? Fuel has gone up. We spoke about it a few weeks ago.
So how do you compensate?
Exactly that.
The price of the car you buy comes down.
Comes down, exactly. People can probably afford a little bit more expensive car, but the cost of ownership is not just the price of the car.
Exactly.
There's the insurance, there's the maintenance, there's repairs, there's fuel. So many things that we have to think about, and your life as well that you have. And generally speaking, everything has gone a little bit more
Food
expensive.
goes up. Clothing goes up.
And your lifestyle can change over time as well. So it's something that people are considering right now, and we're seeing that people are just buying cheaper cars, like you're saying, to sustain either the lifestyle that they currently have, and these other things that are going up.
Exactly. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
I thought you told me it's over, baby. Gonna find you another lady. It's been weeks since you've been around. You keep on dragging me down and down. Black, bright, beautiful, everything. You keep on dragging me downtown. Black, bright, beautiful, everything. You keep on dragging me down and down. By the way, I never told you
To our valued partners, thank you for being part of our journey in leveraging the power of podcasting as part of your marketing mix. The explosion of podcasts and vidcasts is more than a trend, it's a meaningful way to create lasting connection. CliffCentral.com is a unique hybrid of live streaming and podcasting that brings valuable experience and insight. If your business isn't doing podcasting, contact us at contact@cliffcentral.com. All right, we are live. It is a Tuesday morning, cliffcentral.com, just after 7 o'clock, and we are joined by Jack Motlanthe, who, of course, has his own show on a community radio station. What is it? 919?
919, yeah.
919.
Not 911.
Not 911, although you can call. Feel free to call them up on my behalf and say,
ask for Jack.
"Hi, is that the place I call for an emergency?" Also, he's producing. How's the music going, dude?
It's been absolutely amazing, and I've met a couple of really great people. There's a producer called Howie. He works at a studio called Hit Lab, and we're going to be working really close over the next couple of weeks. A friend of mine from high school, V the Vow, he started releasing his own music as well. So we're going to be working on something as well, which is absolutely dope. A couple of my friends from my neighborhood started up a studio called Vibe Studios. So we're trying to create a hub where young people can come through and learn certain skills and all of that good stuff. So they'll learn how to make some music, but also importantly,
instead of sitting around
worried about their feelings.
Yeah.
You know, so they'll be able to come through, learn, you know, different aspects, more specifically the business side of things. Because I think artists typically skip over that part, which is why a lot of us die poor. So
I'm glad that there are people doing this stuff, and I'm pleased that there are opportunities opening up for young people. We need to have more of those because there is obviously an unemployment crisis. So even if you wanted a job in South Africa in 2023, it's hard to find one.
For sure.
And not everybody can make their own job straight out of school, you know?
Yeah. That's without
I
a doubt.
love that we place this expectation on young people to, oh no, you know, if you can't get a job, just make a job. Just what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It's not that easy.
It really isn't.
Really?
It really isn't.
It's very, very tough out there.
I think as well, we need to encourage people a lot more. So there's a, more often than not, there's a negative view of people who, you know, think outside the box or swim against the grain. It's like, what are you doing? Like, what, are you crazy?
Yeah,
you're not going to make money that way.
Well, you know, it's that tall poppy sticking your head over the parapet wall syndrome, which we do have a problem with in this country. And it's cultural again for white and black people because it comes from this idea that you must be humble and quiet, mind your own business. There's a little bit to do with very conservative Christian values that gets pulled into this. I don't want to have a go at Christianity this early in the morning.
Oh, can't we?
But there's something about that, like you've got to hold yourself back and don't be too full of yourself, and for God's sake, don't believe in yourself too much. Otherwise, people will think that you're arrogant, and that's the worst thing we could call you is arrogant. Anyway, I want to show you something that'll make you happy this morning, and then I want to show you something that'll make you furious. Which one do you want first?
Happy.
You want happy first?
You want happy first?
I want happy first.
All right,
you one of those dessert before dinner people. Okay, I get it.
So here it is. Here's the happy thing first. Okay, it is just a polar bear playing in the water. Just having a time. Like he lies there, he's kicking back. He's
Check that out.
That polar bear is happy.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder how many people are as happy as that polar bear is. And it's just playing in the freezing cold water. I mean, obviously it's natural environment.
Yep.
But I watched this video and it just made me smile. I'm like, you know what? If the animals can find time to just swim and enjoy themselves and chill, we can too.
For sure.
So does that make you happy, Buckabantu? Does that help?
It really does.
Yeah, see, so that
that was nice.
This vicious animal in the northern hemisphere that lives in the ice can have a good time.
Watch it stumble
What's wrong
into
with
a
you?
town. Watch it stumble into a town and just eat the first thing it sees.
It will eat someone.
Yeah, of course.
It will. It
Of
will
course.
eat. It will eat something, someone. It'll destroy and bloody the ice in no time.
But for
that
those
moment-
10 seconds, he was having
happy.
the time of
and
his life.
Let us all learn a lesson from that.
Yes.
All right. Then something that's going to make all of us furious. Should make any civilized person on earth furious is these stupid stop oil protesters.
Oh,
Okay, so here are two of these people who went into an art gallery. I'm not even sure what the painting is. I'll try and recognize it now from the clip. But just watch this. This stuff makes me generate steam inside my own body.
Women do not get the vote by voting. It is time for deeds and not words. It is time to just stop oil.
Politics is failing us. Politics failed women in 1914. If millions will die.
Oh my God. All right. So they had a little prepared speech and they had little hammers, just tiny little piddly little hammers that you couldn't even knock in there. Bing, bing, bing. They make some cracks in the glass. They feel like they've achieved something incredible here. They're very, very progressive. These people are the activists we didn't know we needed. And just stop oil. All right. Now, I just want to start off with, like, who are these ignoramuses who are lecturing us on history and are selective about the history that they want to lecture us on?
Oh, my
and
gosh.
while telling us about history and about how the women of the world got the vote, which I will again insist on noticing that these people were not there at the time and that they've got struggle envy of some kind. They're destroying a work of art, a piece of history, which they could never compete with. There's no amount of activism available to these people that can be brought to bear that will even in the slightest way make a contribution like the artwork that they're preparing to take to pieces behind them. That work of art does more and tells us more about history than if these two had to jabber for 16 and a half years about the vote that women got the early 1900s. I'm not going to take people like this seriously, but I wish, I said so on Instagram yesterday, I wish someone in that gallery, like a security guard, someone with some balls, would just rugby tackle these two little fuckers and take those hammers and smash open their heads with them. And I would be thrilled to see the violence. I would be delighted to see these two people struggle to walk for the next 20 years of their lives as a result of being tackled so hard. I want to see this. And oh God, if you're listening, please send, dear Lord Jesus, if you have any regard for my show and you listen every now and then, even if it's once every couple of months, Lord, send,
like and subscribe first.
Yes.
Send down some vengeance upon these people.
Yes, please. Because like it's I've seen different clips of these people interrupting traffic. At some point they were at I'm not sure which Grand Slam it was. I'm not sure if it was Wimbledon or the Australian Open or whatever. Yeah. And they spray out this orange dust and whatnot. Yeah. Like, listen, at the end of the day, the clothes that they're wearing, the dust and all of the shit that they're throwing around, it only got to them because someone used a combustion engine
fuels
to get it there. And I mean, there's no such thing as a easy way of there's no way you could possibly look at the past through today's lens and then try impose today's standards on the past. Like, it makes no sense. Let us also consider this. When women did not have the vote, when you got the opportunity to vote as a man, it also implied that you could be drafted into the army.
Yeah, there was a cost. There was a.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of women didn't want to do that stuff. They didn't want to go to the war.
But
which makes sense.
This is so controversial. But are you saying that not everybody deserves everything in equal proportion?
No. Have you not read Animal Farm? Come on, guys. Let's look.
Have you not read Das Kapital?
Oh man, here's what I'm saying. Like, let's be honest. There's so many differences in who we are as human beings. Gareth, I'm shorter than you. You know what I mean?
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Very unfair.
I'm not less of a human than you are. I'm just shorter.
But socialists are crying about this. Listen. Someone suggests in the comments, and I think this is a very smart idea. Dud says, put the polar bear in with the activists.
Oh, yes.
And we solve two problems at once.
Amen.
Polar bear's too happy. These people are too unhappy. Put them together. The polar bear.
Close a room.
Yeah, I really feel like this would be good.
Watch them stop oil then.
Dad's, you're my favorite person this morning, bro. Thank you for that one. It was genius.
Very nice. All right. You want to add anything to this, Bakabantu?
Oh,
You've got
no.
anything to say?
I'm thinking like, so we're worrying about the vote in 1914. Meanwhile, in Saudi Arabia, people just started driving, like women started driving 3 years ago. These are places with actual problems. Like Gareth, you brought this up yesterday.
Well, we
right?
just spoke to JJ about Senegal and
There you go.
Mauritania.
Listen
Well,
to
women
that.
and children are just got kidnapped and they're in basically slavery conditions. But
Right.
Gosh, let's really break that painting, right?
But
That's
let's stop fossil fuels.
yes. Let's
But
stop oil.
But the only reason that these idiots, and they are idiots, there's no other way for me to put it. The only reason that these people are given the opportunity to behave like this is because there aren't consequences.
Exactly. They're in London.
I'm saying they need consequences.
They need to be thrown behind
We need
bars.
to have someone who will come up to them and smash them until it hurts and until it stops hurting because their nervous system caves in.
Yeah.
That's when I think we finally see some sense prevail.
I'd actually like to backtrack on something I said a little earlier on. If there are some consequences to what these people are doing and they get beaten the way they're supposed to,
Or when they stop a truck and the truck must just drive over them.
Yes.
And the driver should be given immunity for what he's done.
straight after they get hit by a car or get tackled or whatever, then I'll care about their feelings. Like, now let's talk. What's going on? Tell me how you feel.
Even then I won't care.
How's your eye? How's it doing? Did we learn something today, Jimmy? Did we?
I don't think they will. I don't think these people are able to
It's stupid.
They don't.
It's so dumb.
learn. It's all people, young and old, who don't have jobs and are desperate for attention, says Moonchild. I think that's possible.
I've even noticed these are first world country problems. Like this is in like the center of London. Yeah, it's never like downtown Johannesburg where it's blowing up. We don't care about.
We don't care about. We've got real problems.
Now here's a point. HML says surely parents are to blame. These kids have never been given a hiding in their lives. What do you think of that?
I think I feel like HML is reiterating what I was saying earlier on. I think we are raising a bunch of soft little kids who talk about their feelings all day.
Gee, you really aren't like this feeling.
I really, Gareth, but think about it. Like the only reason those two did what they did to that painting was because they watched a documentary for 2 hours and felt like they had read something.
No.
And then
they saw Greta tweet.
And something like that. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they just felt like they needed to do something. It's like that painting's not going to.
They chose the easiest thing to do.
Yep.
There you go.
Again,
Which
take a plane, go down to like Darfur and fight for women's rights.
My God.
No, that would require work. It's much easier to gain. They're getting attention from us on this show. They're getting attention from people all over the world. Not necessarily the attention that they want, but they're getting attention. You don't get to choose what kind. And it's cheap.
Is it changing anything?
No, it's not changing anything, but it's cheap. They don't have to do a lot to get the attention. It takes enormous amounts of capital and effort and energy and money, or rather of energy, time, pretty much
mental
all the
fortitude.
any kind of resource to go and solve a problem.
Yes,
Actually
it does.
solve a problem.
It does.
To make something different. Much easier to just claim the points for free on the internet and do something very, very easy, like go to an art gallery when nothing's going to happen to you. And
Exactly.
take a hammer to a painting.
Dr. Jordan Peterson said it best.
Yeah.
In order, when he has to do some of his talks and there's rumblings about people protesting and whatnot, he just shows up early.
Oh, that's good. Because they're
Just
too
show up
lazy.
early.
Because they're too lazy.
They're way too lazy.
That's very clever.
I feel like 6 a.m. is too early to wake up. You see what I mean?
So activism at 6 a.m. is not really existent.
Nope.
It's like protests for the Uyghurs. It's just
There you go.
protest for
However,
Darfur. It doesn't happen. Much easier to protest for Gaza or wake up at 12.
Yeah.
now, for those of us who are interested in things that are actually going to bring about a level of change or introduce us to a new way of thinking, I would wake up at 6 a.m. to go attend something like that because it's serious. And I realize that there's some effort I'm going to have to put behind it.
Hell, you woke up this morning to be here with us.
There you go.
It's one of the reasons this show works is we start early.
Yeah.
Well, the people who don't listen to us only wake up later anyway. That's our
Exactly.
excuse.
And now I'm supposed to somehow consider those people's opinions, like take them seriously. Come on.
Let me ask you about this. An experimental spinal cord implant has helped a Parkinson's patient walk. I love when we do things like this.
Yeah.
You know, this is the
Like, we don't get wins as the world, right? When we can make people who couldn't walk.
that's a big win.
Yeah.
It's massive.
So Mark Gauthier, who's 63, has been living with Parkinson's for almost 3 decades. In a new study, he was surgically implanted with an experimental spinal cord neuroprosthesis to correct walking disorders in people with Parkinson's disease. To develop the implant, researchers from France, Sweden, Switzerland, and other institutions around the world visualized and mapped which hotspots in the lower spinal cord the neuroprosthesis must target with electrical stimulation to alleviate gait impairments and balance problems. After a few months of rehab with the neuroprosthetic stimulation, Gauthier has regained the ability to walk independently using the implant. That is
massive.
Isn't that fantastic?
Absolutely fantastic.
Really, good for humans. This is the stuff that will get us ahead, not bickering about whether or not history was like this or like that,
Yep.
or smashing a painting with a hammer.
No.
Honestly, even that polar bear is impressed at this point.
Really.
It's just so great. I love stories like this. It's important we pay attention to these things. And then this is another great story. A story of Limpopo province where things went right is a rare thing. But here, Limpopo police are investigating a case of attempted business robbery after assailants fled from the scene and left a firearm behind when they were disarmed by the victim. I love this. The victim was 71 years old. Okay. Old man was about to lock his cafe up, his spaza shop, when 2 suspects entered as customers and pointed a firearm at him, demanding money. He overpowered the 2 suspects and grabbed the firearm from one of them. They immediately fled the scene on foot.
Yeah.
It's just a pity he didn't get to shoot them. That's it.
You see now this story encompasses everything we talked about,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
This weak, soft youth.
Yep.
Yes.
And,
Against the
and
real
this
man.
is the guy we need in that art gallery to fix the problems.
Well, he's 71, so he did fight apartheid.
Yeah, exactly.
And he probably fought damn hard for his little shop. And now these 2 assholes come in there and they try to take stuff that is not theirs at gunpoint.
Nigga just worked a long day. Long day.
Can you imagine? Can you
He's trying to
imagine?
lock up his shop and you come in, I whoop your ass.
And here's look, can you when I turn 71, I would hope that I'm doing things that are not as physically straining, and they are things that in perhaps assist with the quality of my life. If this man at 71 is still running his puzzle, that means he does not have financial freedom to do as he pleases.
He doesn't live off the state.
And then some 2 entitled rats decide to walk in there and stick him up. I'm glad he whooped them. I am so glad.
I'm very
Wish I could have seen
again. I would have liked even more violence. But that's just me. What I'm amazed by here is also the fact that frozen reason, I don't know why, but it seems like oh, there we go. Okay, we're back to normal. I don't know what happened here, but I was trying to get the cameras working. This guy with the whooping the ass of these 2 kids.
Yeah.
At 71, I hate to see an old man have to defend himself against young people like this, but it does show you how pathetic they must be. They had a gun, and there were 2 of them.
Yes.
And he's 71, and he didn't have a gun.
He's tired, Gareth. He's just locked up.
But he decided, all right, I'm going to bring it. And he brought it, and they had no way of fighting him. Now, I saw a great...
That was my favorite line of the story.
saw
They immediately fled the scene on foot.
Left the gun behind.
Oh my God.
Okay, so I hope they catch them and they still put them in jail as
Yes.
well as having, because now they're embarrassed and they're going to have to go to jail. I saw a great story yesterday, also on social media. It was this video of a young guy in a bus in, I think, Australia. I don't know if you saw this. The guy's sitting down there and some old man is sitting in front of him. And he starts arguing and fighting with this old man, but he's some fat little spoilt Australian kid.
Yeah.
And another guy comes down the aisle of the bus and he grabs this little fucker by the neck. And he grabs his neck and he says, "Don't you talk to an old man like that. Who the hell do you think you are? Have some respect for your elders." This kid goes dead quiet and submissive and sits down. And he knows he's been shown by an older man how to behave.
Exactly.
We need more of that in society.
We definitely
need
do.
more people who are telling people who are stepping out of line to get back in line.
Yep. And
Because social media has given people this idea that they can be as loud and as obnoxious and as irritating and as terrible and antisocial as they want to be, and it's just not true. You can't.
You can't.
You're not allowed
It's
to.
I think it is incumbent on all of us, those of us who understand the principles of decency and being able to treat one another as human beings. It is completely our responsibility to step up and say no to such behavior. And listen, do not be afraid of someone recording a video and then posting you on social media to make you a villain. It doesn't matter. You're doing the Lord's work.
But you won't be a villain. Look at how we're celebrating these people. Not as villains. It's the opposite of villains. The people in that video with the painting, they're the villains.
Yeah.
And these two guys with a gun are the villains. The old 71-year-old man is the hero. I mean, he might be a really grumpy, nasty old piece of work, but I don't care in this case.
Yep.
You try to rob a store, you're going to get your ass.
Get your ass whooped.
Need
What?
more people getting ass whooped, right?
All right. Well, very good. There's some happy stories to make your day. In case you were feeling a bit sorry for yourself this morning and you thought maybe, the world's a bit of a mess and all the rest. Bears and about people take any shit from other people. So very nice to see you, Jack. Thanks for popping by. We will no doubt see you again soon.
Thanks for having me. This
Appreciate
was
you being part of this.
a lot of fun. And yeah, those of you who are watching this and you thought I kind of crossed the line a couple of times, just remember, I don't care about your feelings.
And here he is. There's his handle. You can follow him at Jack_5'4".
Yeah.
You can find him on social media and you can find him on community radio as well. Very good.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. Very good. It's flown by. The time has just absolutely flown by. So we're going to talk next to Michael Vlismas, who, of course, is an author. He's written a number of amazing books, including biographies about Gary Player, Skulkberger Sr., and Tim Noakes, among others. And today we're going to talk to him about his book about Elon Musk, which apparently we know Elon has read. It's called Risking It All. There's another biography of Elon Musk that is doing the rounds at the moment by Walter Isaacson. And we thought, let's check in with Michael. We've had him on the show before. Michael, it's nice to see you. How are you?
Very good. Thanks, Gareth. Good to be with you.
Good. Great to see you again. What project are you busy with at the moment, or are you just playing golf?
I'm covering golf. Unfortunately, I'm always at a golf course, but never playing it. So I'm actually at the Nedbank Golf Challenge this week, which is why I've got this beautiful pink shirt on.
Okay. Is that the color? Is that the color of the Nedbank Golf Challenge this year?
It's the color for today. It's the color for today. Yes. So, but yeah.
So, Michael, I mentioned that you've written a book about Elon Musk, and I think, he's the flavor of the moment for anybody. I think that rock stars and celebrities have been replaced by people who are extremely rich and people who've done extremely well in business. And Elon is kind of the top of the pile. And a lot of people can't stand him and they find him completely bizarre. A lot of people think he's a god worth worshipping. And most of us are somewhere in between. But I think it would be very bizarre to find someone anywhere on planet Earth who wasn't a little bit curious about this guy. He certainly is an interesting human being by anyone's standards, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when I did my research, it's precisely for that reason that, I made a promise to myself not to read any other book about him when I was doing my research, because he is such a complex character. He's such a polarizing character, and there's so much out there about him that you're not sure you can trust until you get to the source yourself, which I wanted to do. And I wanted to make up my own opinion of him. But going through all of that, I mean, I was astounded by the level of cult following that he has. I uncovered a woman who actually tried to commit suicide and said it was Elon Musk's tweets that brought her back from the brink. And as such, she developed. Wow. She was an artist, developed a coloring book featuring some of the most groundbreaking tweets that she said saved her. And it's an incredible following that he has out there. And as you say, there's some people that think he is, he's here to save the world and save us all. No. And there's others that are frightened to death of where he might take the world.
Do you think Elon Musk thinks he's here to save the world? Does he have a bit of a God complex going on? Because that's one of the criticisms people level at him. Yeah. He said, for example, he bought Twitter to save free speech. and civilization.
It's like even his like thing about SpaceX is like civilization does need to be saved because it will end one day.
Yeah. And I mean, is there a bit of a I wouldn't say it's just a narcissism and a self-absorbed nonsense idea, but there might be an actual God complex going on there. Do you think that's possible?
I definitely think so. I think, at that level, I think the ego is definitely large, and it certainly, possibly it has to be. Possibly you have to believe in yourself to that extent to reach the kind of heights he does. But I certainly do believe he wants to save the world, but he wants to be the one to do it, and he doesn't share that responsibility too well. And I do definitely think, when you possibly sit in a room with Elon Musk, I've had experience of that with his father, Errol. There's definitely a belief from the other side that I get it and I am the smartest person in the room. So yeah, I think he possibly manages it well, better than some. I think there's others out there that are far worse on that spectrum. But I mean, I definitely do believe it.
I think so too. I think there's also something different about him in that he also isn't taking everything super seriously the whole time. You get the distinct impression that Mark Zuckerberg has absolutely no sense of humor. No. You get the distinct impression that people like Bill Gates take everything they do extremely seriously. But with Elon, he said he offered just this week to buy Facebook, or rather he would give Zuckerberg $1 billion if he just changed the name of Facebook to Faceboob, which is the kind of thing that, first of all, someone with fuck you money would do. But second of all, that he really isn't in the game to do anything but disrupt and upset and fuck around. I mean, you do think that this guy must be having the time of his life when you see the way he tweets on Twitter.
I agree with you there. He absolutely is not motivated by the money, because otherwise he would have gone away a long time ago, and takes enormous risks with his money. The extra $1, the profit or whatever like that, much to his shareholders' chagrin, I think he just does not. Money is just not what drives him, and as a result of that, yeah, he is such a different character, and I still maintain. I was asked last week on a British radio station, is he a madman or is he a genius? And I actually don't think he's either. I think he's just very aware of the world around him and has an incredible propensity to push forward and work his ass off, for want of a better word, and just keep going in the face of massive failures. And I think he just is really dogged and has that perseverance about him as well.
Do you think there's any truth to this idea that he might be somewhere on the spectrum, autistic-wise? That there may actually be something in the hardware that's maybe a bit glitchy?
That's an interesting one, Gareth, because following a little bit on from listening to your previous conversation, I come from a different era where those things weren't so clearly defined. You were just some, that boy's just quiet, or that boy's just different, and I'm not always sure as we've moved on and started to say, okay, well, this is how we define these things more clearly, whether it's always right in that sense, that it has such an impact. I'm not discounting that there are individuals that have certain conditions like this, but for me, he may be on the spectrum. He maybe has Asperger's or something like that. But by the same token, I can probably from my childhood point out a few guys that I was friends with and knew that probably had the same, but it didn't have a name then. So I sort of feel I wouldn't want to say it's an excuse for who he is, or it's made him better for who he is. I don't think it's that much of a differentiator for me in terms of such a big personality disorder. I don't think, no.
So I've just read the Walter Isaacson, not the whole thing, because it's quite a fat book, and frankly, as I said to Bakabantu, as you get close to the end, the more it gets superseded by events on the internet, and the book almost seems like it's old and out of date. What I found fascinating about this is that his whole story in South Africa is probably 8 or 9 pages, and that's all they've got. You must have done a fair amount of research. Did you find any more than that? Because I was a little disappointed to see that that's really all they had to say. You know, he was bullied at high school. He didn't time in this country. His parents decided it was a good idea to get him out. He and his 2 siblings, Kimball and Tosca, didn't particularly feel any affinity to South Africa. And that's it. The chapter closes. Anything more?
Much more, and you know that's the differentiator I wanted to bring with my book is I wanted to color in the 17 years in South Africa, and I reached out to him through a number of platforms and never got a response. Reached out to his father who came back to me a year later, and then explained why I never got the responses. It was because he was busy with the official, with Walter Isaacson, but I was disappointed equally that there wasn't more there. I felt there was, it's difficult. People's perceptions of their childhood are theirs, and you can't make judgment on that. That it was a challenging upbringing, absolutely. But I didn't I couldn't find a connect with Walter Isaacson painting it as this brutal childhood survival of the fittest, Lord of the Flies kind of existence. You know, he describes Veldskool as being, kids being left to fight each other for scraps of food. Now, I mean, I consider myself a fairly sensitive, emotional, introverted individual. I went to Veldskool and I had a fabulous time. I mean, my most traumatic experience at Veldskool was, I think our entire grade got food poisoning from the milk course, but I loved it. I went back for thirds. So I felt there was this painting of this apocalyptic South Africa where he was, there was a one line that they went to anti-apartheid music concerts and a dead body with a knife in the head was on the ground and they waded. The word was waded through blood. I mean, that's I just couldn't see that.
Very odd. Yeah.
Grew up in the same town, same time, but I did find I reached out to a lot of people and I found childhood friends. I found people that colored in a lot of that for me and described him, in a way that I felt the official biography missed. I was very excited to read the Walter Isaacson biography, and I think, like you, I felt there should have been more there.
What can you tell us about his mother? She's a fascinating person, and she was just honored in South Africa with some sort of honorary doctorate. But she is a self-made woman in every sense of the word. Her parents also fascinating people too, but his siblings as well. I mean, give us the family history there, because he's got 10 kids of his own. So from here on, the family tree expands quite quickly. But at that point, it was really him, his dad Errol, who you have interviewed, the mum, May, and then these 2 siblings of his. Tell us about them and perhaps how they all fit together.
Yeah, so they, on May's side, it's the Helderman family, and very interesting family as well. Joshua Helderman, and a life in Canada, difficult life as well, a homesteading life. He grew up under very difficult circumstances there, but was a different thinker, pioneer, and had that pioneering spirit, and literally just sort of fell out of favor with the political situation and thinking in Canada at the time, and decided it's time to leave. But his mother was a chiropractor, got into chiropractics at a very early stage of the science, and believes she healed her son's blindness at one point through chiropractics.
This is Elon's grandfather, right?
Correct. That's correct. Yes. And he then decided to leave Canada because of the political situation that he didn't agree with there. And South Africa was the choice. And, literally packed up a biplane that he had. He was an avid pilot, and arrived in South Africa, unpacked the plane, put it together on the dock, and took flight over South Africa for the first time. He was that kind of individual, and had intended to settle the family in Joburg, and then saw the beautiful jacarandas of Pretoria and said, no, that's where we're going to settle. and the family settled there. And they were, I spoke to a number of people that knew the Heldermans in those early days in Pretoria, and they were very eccentric. They would host walking parties on their front lawn to, invite people around and make sure that your posture was correct and all these kind of things. And, they would go, he would disappear into the Kalahari looking for the lost city, the fabled lost city of the Kalahari. And that's where, May and her sister grew up, with lions and hyenas and all sorts of wild animals around them. But they were a very eccentric family. So I think he gets a lot of that pioneering eccentricity from that side. On his father's side, Errol, it was a very hard upbringing for Errol. Joburg born and raised, and tough mother, didn't suffer fools and didn't suffer sensitivities too much either. He recalls at one point he was brokenhearted about a girl that left him, and she sort of whispered to him and said, just come here. And as he got closer, she gave him a thwack across the head and said, pull yourself together, man, get control. And that was the kind of upbringing that he had. So he brought a lot of that stern, you've got to be streetwise, you've got to be street smart, you've got to know how to handle yourself to his kids. And the question is always asked when they eventually did split. Errol denies that he ever lifted a hand to May, and May says she was, really physically and emotionally abused by him. When they did split, why did Elon go with Errol? And he says he felt sorry for his father. And as things would turn out, I think in terms of where Elon was going and got to, an upbringing with his father was probably more expedient for that. But yes, there was no real paternal love in that sense, which I think he still feels to this day. And then Kimball is the more eccentric one. He's the one that really
more eccentric.
Yeah, he's the one that really stood out at school, because I went back and I looked at, because, we were 4 years apart. He was 4 years ahead of me at Pretoria Boys High. And I went back and I looked at records and tried to find these genius academic marks, and I could find nothing for Elon that really suggested he stood out. I mean, even his classmates were like, yeah, you want to remember him, but didn't really stand out. But Kimball was the personality. He was the one with a smile. He was the one people remember. And he was the one with a real outgoing personality. Yeah,
it's amazing. And the sister, we don't hear much about her.
Yeah, she went with her mother, and we don't hear a lot about her. You're right, and she's also done fabulously well with her streaming, her romance movies streaming platform, and she is painted by her mother as somebody that's also fiercely independent and sold up everything in South Africa and helped them move overseas. I'm also sort of a bit ambivalent about that. She was very young. I'm not sure how she was able to sell houses and cars on her own while her mother was overseas with Elon. But I don't know. It was a different time possibly. But yeah, we don't hear too much of her, except that Errol said to me, when things were being said about him in the media, and it was getting quite personal, and because I asked him as well, I said, Errol, how your own children have described you as psychotic, capable of immense evil. Elon has said, how does that make you feel? And he said he did at one point. He contacted Tosca and he said, what is this that I'm reading about me? And he said her words to him were, Dad, it's just the media. Don't worry about it. And he said, so I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. I'm kind of getting from you that the overriding theme here is that you can't pick up on like success at school.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting idea, because I think for a lot of people, they assume that there'll be telltale signs like you did of, this guy's going to be the world's richest man, and this is a family of tremendous talent, and everyone here is going to do exceedingly well. There isn't any measure for those things at a young age, is there? There's no special ingredient in the way Elon Musk was raised that the rest of us might or might not have that will guarantee our success.
Yeah, and that was actually hopeful for me, because I thought to myself, well, exactly as you say, there was no real sign that he was just this genius right from the start and got A's in everything, which wasn't the case. And I thought to myself, well, that's great for every other kid out there that might feel lost, might feel, well, where's this all going? Might feel, well, my school experience is not so great, and I'm struggling in maths, and I'm struggling here, and I'm struggling there. It's wonderful to know that that doesn't define it, and that there's a lot more
Michael,
when you walk off those grounds.
Is there a secret sauce? Is there something about certain people that just projects them to the top? And he's been successful more than a couple of times, which I think is why he's so interesting to so many of us. Everything he gets involved in, he seems to put his stamp on. He makes a change that's enormous and measurable. I mean, with Tesla, with PayPal, with SpaceX, with all of these projects, and now with X, with Twitter, he seems to be able to take control of stuff and really redirect it and move hundreds, if not thousands of people in a specific direction. Where does that come from? And is it something you've seen in any of the other people you've written about?
Yeah, and for me, it's, you speak about the secret sauce, and most of my background being sport, and I've seen it over and over again. Very, very rarely do you just have this absolute talent that you can just see. The Tiger Woods has come along, even, you go back, the Sevi Ballesteros, the Lionel Messi's, it very rarely is that the case in sport. The majority, yes, there's an obvious baseline talent that has to be developed, but it's just sheer hard work and determination. And I look at Gary Player. Gary Player was told at a young age, you're never going to make it. You've got the most horrendous golf swing. Give up now. Don't even bother. And I think he's the absolute epitome of somebody that just worked his tail off and just refused to believe the naysayers. Just recently, Francois Hougaard, I had a chat to him in Durban, and he said, I played, good rugby at school, and everybody tells you've got talent. But I never knew I was going to be a professional till the day I signed a professional contract. And I just got one opportunity. It was just one opportunity. Never played Craven Week, never played SA schools or any of that. Got one opportunity because so many other players were injured. And they said, okay, have a go. And showed himself in those 80 minutes. And from there, got the age group recognition and went on. But so many of them, you speak to so many professional golfers, and it's just sheer determination and hard work and a refusal to let go of what they believe is that dream and keep going for it. I mean, even the likes of a Sevi Ballesteros, that was just a man that just grew up in absolute poverty and used to hit ramshackle clubs on a beach in Spain. And just had a different way about him. And I think more than, if there is a secret sauce, I think it's definitely in the mind. It's a belief, it's a self-belief, and it's an ability to say, I back myself in whichever direction we're going. And you're right, he's done that. Yeah. Elon Musk has done that.
Well, I'm trying to sort of shepherd you back to the title of your book, which is Risking It All. And there is something there about people who are prepared to just, and you see this all over the world in all kinds of arenas, not just in sport or in business, but in many different places. People who are going to put it all on the line for what they believe in. And they have no fear of losing everything. Whereas the rest of us are mostly too terrified that we're going to end up in a worse situation than we're currently in. Yeah. And so we never take the chance of being better.
100%. And he definitely, he didn't get that fear download for sure. He doesn't mind risking it all. He doesn't mind going through hell to get there. In fact, it appears he quite enjoys that. Definitely from the Isaacson biography, if things are too calm, he gets worried and he gets nervous. He likes the chaos and the instability. But yeah, you're right. The majority of us won't carry on for so long. At some point, somebody, a friend or a family member is going to say, get real. That was a lovely dream and that was great, but it's time to be realistic. That horrible word. It's time to be realistic here. Get a real job. or maybe you should quit now and try something else. And they don't. These people don't. They just keep going and keep pushing forward, which is why they probably eventually get there, and the majority of us don't.
Bakabantu, I'm sure you've got lots of questions too. I've dominated this conversation completely.
I do have lots of questions. Number one, the elephant in the room. Did you find out why he has an X obsession? Why he's obsessed about this one letter of the alphabet?
I didn't actually. I mean, there was all sorts of things about, where he went, the boardroom, the boarding house that he stayed in at college was literally shaped in an X as well. And what X means to him, it was his original company name when he, one of his startups, and seems to have always wanted to get back there. So there's a lot of theories around it, but I haven't heard it from the horse's mouth. No.
What about his terrible taste in women? I mean, he seems to also have the most bizarre attraction to these very broken, very strange women, and he's got 10 children, and he thinks that overpopulation is absolutely not a thing. And I mean, it's seemingly he's going to repopulate the earth all on his own if the rest of us don't do it. His personal life, did you manage to glean any useful information from the sources that you interrogated on this?
Yeah, I think what came through for me is that he's a lot more like his father than he would like to admit. And I think it comes through in personality, and it comes through in the multiple children and multiple women in his life. So, it definitely, he's got a lot more similarities there than I think he would admit to. But yeah, it did come through that he is, that he does believe in this altruistic concept of, love and that special person in your life, and he wants that. He does want that.
Yeah.
He just doesn't get it right more often than not.
Well,
unfortunately,
he wouldn't be the only human being who doesn't get it right. I think the majority of us are in the same.
I think his first wife got him. She got him and understood him, and I think that's she really understood what made him work and what made him successful. And I think that was the one.
As I understand it, she still speaks very highly of him. They get along quite well. They've got the kids in common, and they've got plenty that they still get along with, or get along on. So there's no ugliness there. Is there any other stuff that you think contributes to people's fascination with this guy? I mean, apart from the fact that he seems to absorb and retain knowledge very well, something which you would think in this day and age wouldn't be as impressive as it is, because people can Google anything they want. But he does have the ability to recall numbers and important facts at a moment's notice. He seems to be extremely plugged in to what's going on in the world. He likes to know what the latest developments are in science. He likes to know what's happening in terms of space exploration and technological advancement and biological and technological overlap. There are all these areas that he's very, very interested in. Is he a generalist or is he a specialist?
That's a great question, because people are fascinated. I mean, you just look at the meeting he had with the debate he had with Rishi Sunak, of Prime Minister of the UK. It looked like the Prime Minister wanted to impress Elon Musk rather than the other way around. That was it. He has that pull and that effect on people. I think he is. I go back to what I said. I think I agree with you. He's very self-aware, very aware of what's going on around him, what's happening in the world, where it's shifting, where it's moving, and has that ability to put himself into that and disrupt and move forward with that. So many of his projects, you can say, well, are they successes or are they failures? The fact that they have changed industries says they're a success. The fact that Tesla people might argue, well, what is it, and is it a financial success? But the fact that every other major car manufacturer out there now must have a viable electric solution says it's a success. So I do think he is brilliant at knowing where to move next. And SpaceX was a very interesting example for me. He comes with the grand idea and he says, let's colonize Mars. And I still don't believe to this day that he believes that's viable. But it's a grand idea and it gets people excited. It's like Mars, aliens, Martians, fantastic. Let's go to Mars. That's exciting. Everybody's excited again about space. But what does he do? He then launches SpaceX, and it becomes a very effective logistical tool, just moving cargo. And nobody's gone to Mars yet, and nobody's any closer to living on Mars. But there's a very successful business that has come from that marketing idea and that hype. The Boring Company, he has this, as you say, getting back to that lovely flippant nature and that humorous side of him.
Yeah.
I'm going to tunnel under the city and launch a company called The Boring Company. And how does he fund it? He makes flamethrowers and taps into the zombie market, which is $1 billion market all its own. I think people see fun and they see somebody that is actually enjoying business and what they do. And there's a great byproduct to that some of it actually works.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things before we wrap this up is that people seem absolutely obsessed with his politics. I don't see him as an inherently political creature. I don't think politics is as interesting to him as so many of the other things we've discussed this morning. But it does seem to be an obsession for those who don't like him. Yeah. They're just absolutely wrapped up in whether or not he's a liberal or conservative, whether he believes in free speech or not, whether he has very strong feelings about this, that, or the other. But they seem to project their own stuff onto him as if he's got superpowers. Maybe they've watched too many Iron Man movies. What do you make of it?
I think I agree with you, and I think maybe it's people's difficulty to put him in that box, and politics wants to do that more than anything else. It wants to define you, it wants to label you, and if people can't do that, then it's a problem for them, and it's a problem for politicians. And you can't be the person in this day and age that says, well, you know what. There's a little bit about what Donald Trump says that I might agree with. You're not allowed to be that person. You can say, look, there's 90% of what Donald Trump says that I don't agree with, but 10% I resonates with me. You can't be that person these days, and he is, and he doesn't give a damn, what the repercussion of that is. There is the secondary, more concerning layer to that. You speak about Iron Man and his control of Starlink and its impact in the Ukraine, and his ability to, shift the progress of war at some point. He could quite easily, link up Gaza with communications at the moment and disrupt what Israel is attempting to do militarily in a region there. That's a very, very new field for Elon Musk that I'm not entirely sure. No. Yes, I'm not entirely sure he quite knows how to handle either. But yeah, I think I wouldn't want to see him, get too involved in politics, because I think that is the appeal as well, is that he doesn't have a direct label on him. His father said to me he's very concerned about the political route that Elon is taking, because his dad believes and said, Elon, they'll take you out if you start offending too many people in too many high places. They will just get rid of you, and you've got to be careful. He was asking all sorts of questions about his son's personal security as well. So yeah, I agree. I wouldn't want to see him become a politician or politically inclined too much. I think he's got more value elsewhere.
It's also amazing to me that he's probably one of the least materialistic people that I've ever read about. He's not interested. He doesn't own a bunch of properties. He doesn't buy expensive art. He doesn't drive fancy cars. He's more involved in designing them and trying to make them as ugly as possible. If you look at some of the things that Tesla's churning out, but he's totally not interested in the finery, the show-off stuff, the conspicuous consumption stuff that so many people who wish they were rich seem to be invested in.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think early on in his life and his career, he had that fabulous success, and it was PayPal, and there was instant wealth, and he bought that McLaren, and I think he learned a lesson there, because there was concern that it is showy, that it is ostentatious. What are we becoming? His wife at that stage said, I'm worried we're going to become rich, spoiled brats, I think possibly learned from that, is that the success for him is not in the money, which is why he will drop billions on something and not blink an eye. It's not in and it's not in the showy wealth and all of that kind of thing. The success for him is in the industries, is in the ideas, is in the chaos that he wants to put himself into, and try and find a way through and forward and shaping something bigger than all of that. It sounds so cliched, but I honestly do believe that is
because we broke up. This is where we need a Skylink, but we broke up for a second. You said the success isn't in the money, it's in, and then we broke up. So just repeat that again. You said in industry, and then I lost you.
It's in the ideas for him. It's in what he wants to, where he wants to shift the world, where he wants to, the mark Elon Musk wants to make. That's where the success lies for him. It's not in the wealth. It's not in, I've got this great car or anything like that, which I'm sure he does have elements of that, but he doesn't, as you say, it's not something that he would want to flaunt.
Michael.
And I think that's the allure, Gareth. I think that's what people follow. If, to answer the question, why do people like this man, and why does this man seem to be a thought leader? It's that interest in success, not in the flashy stuff. It's his belief that he can change the world, and we all want that. And so we can live vicariously through him.
Well, you think that's right, Michael?
I do, and I'm often asked about what's the point of Elon Musk, and I like he's got a lot of flaws. Is he, you ask people they want to label him. Is he a good man? Is he a bad man? Is he evil? Is he a genius? What is he? He has so many flaws. I wouldn't say he's a good human being. I wouldn't say he's a bad human being. He's probably a really hard person to work for, which you would have to be, as a boss of that nature. I wouldn't want to spend hours, sleeping on factory floors, changing car parts like he does, or working for him. I don't think I'd want to work for him, absolutely. But I like the fact that the world has an Elon Musk. I don't want him to be the CEO. I wouldn't want him to run my company one day. If I even had a company that he could run, I wouldn't want him to be the CEO making those decisions. But I like the fact that there's an Elon Musk out there thinking the things he's thinking. And I'm glad he's in the world for that. The fact that he is thinking about things and he is questioning certain things. And I'd like to put him in a big think tank like that and say, let's get more of you around, and you guys just think, and we'll see what we can do with all of that great thought.
Well, I mean, ironically, there just aren't a lot of Elon Musks, and that's also why we're interested in people like him, because they are rare, and few people have the courage of their convictions, as per your earlier point about risking it all. That's the name of the book by Michael Vlismas. It's called Elon Musk Risking It All. Michael, it's great to talk to you. I hope that the weather holds up for the Nedbank Golf Challenge, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Gareth. I really appreciate it, and thanks for the lovely chat. Thank you.
Lovely to see you. Thanks, Michael. Cheers. Yeah, there we go. Lots to think about with Elon Musk, but read the books. There are 2 of them out now. And if you want more about the earlier part of his life, then I think it sounds like Michael's got much more meat in the bones there than what Walter Isaacson has in his much thicker book about more of the recent stuff. Anyway, that's all we got time for this morning, everybody. We will see you tomorrow, 6 a.m. Cheers. Bye-bye.